DeepSeek unseats the markets. Trump releases a meme coin. I can see almost the entire solar system in the night sky. Everything is upside down. Nothing makes any sense, and we're here to break it down. Coming up on Block and Order. Welcome to Block and Order, the show that explores the legal issues facing the world of Web3 and beyond. I'm Kyle Lawrence, and with me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, oh, Captain, my Captain, Mr. Moish Peltz.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. Nice to see you, Kyle.
That's you.
I hear you're a little bit under the weather, but I'm glad you're here for the show.
Moish, the show must go on. Nothing will stand in the way of Block and Order.
Nothing.
A lot of stuff going on, man. It's crazy. There's fireworks going on outside. I don't know why, but I'm here for it.
Okay. Is this our first episode since the inauguration?
Yes. Wow, that's right.
Has anything happened in the last 8 days?
Not that I can recall, but it does seem like years ago, if we're being totally honest.
8 days or 8 years could be somewhere in between.
I mean, time has no meaning anymore. Nothing means anything, Moish. Everything is ethereal. Nothing is tangible, and we're going to break it all down.
Yep, that's the thing. The legal insights behind nothingness. Next on Block and Order.
That's what the legal field really is. We just pontificate about whatever we want, and we get paid for it. It's actually pretty great.
It's not bad.
Well, it's not. All right. Well, lots to do, lots to talk about, lots to cover today on Block and Order. Moish, why don't you kick us off with topic number 1?
All right. Well, it wouldn't be the top of the Block and Order unless we started with the Trump meme coin. So what are we talking about here? Well, I guess we'll be a little bit chronological before we even get to the inauguration. All the way back in, I think it was January 23rd. Do you remember the date?
I don't remember the exact date. I think it was 10 days ago. Yeah.
The almost President Trump, the president-elect, at least his company, launched a meme coin. And it very quickly went from almost no value on a Friday night to, I think it hit $75 billion of value fully diluted, something like $5 billion circulating, which quickly made it a top 25 meme coin in all of crypto, top 25 token in all of crypto. So Kyle, the question is it legal?
Well, Moish, you know that everything President Trump does is perfectly legal and within the bounds of what is and what is not permissible here in the United States of America. That's the position that I'm going to take, and I'm sure that's the position that he and his people are taking. Do you disagree?
Well, I think there's a certain logic to it. If I'm the president, I can do what I want and I have no legal liability. So if I launch a meme token, it is presumptively legal. I think that theory works, but I think the other question is, well, if you're not the president, would it be legal to launch this meme coin?
I mean, it hasn't been for other people who are not the president. At least the government up until that point had made it pretty abundantly clear that there was no legal way to do that here in the United States. That's why so many of these people who were launching these assets were doing so in the Cayman Islands and other offshore jurisdictions. There was just no route to do it here in the United States. But once you remove the Night King Gary Gensler and get rid of, the anti-crypto kind of establishment within the government, what's really stopping him? Yes, there's no legal regulatory framework to do this, but there's nothing really saying that you can, other than Gary Gensler just saying, yes, what you did is illegal and you can't do that. I mean, that's really what we were working, being intellectually honest.
Sure. But I think there's also an argument to be said about, well, this is a meme token. It doesn't connect to the income stream of the offeror, like Trump's holding company. It promises nothing except meme and entertainment. There's no rewards or financial benefit besides the mere appreciation of it, which is untethered to really anything. So how does it fail the Howey test?
I don't know if it necessarily fails the Howey test, but we're going to talk about a class action lawsuit later against Pump.Fun, in which the plaintiffs assert that Pump.Fun basically encouraged people to inflate the value of these assets and then pull all the cash out. And I think an argument can be made, I'm not saying that this is my argument, but people can argue that Trump puts his name on something, it automatically generates interest on it. He is the world's greatest influencer, after all. And you put his name on it, and all of a sudden people are flocking in throngs to this asset. You saw what was happening that Friday night and all day the next day. I've never seen anything like that. I don't think anybody has. It was on Coinbase in 48 hours. That's insane.
Well, isn't that insane how quickly that's changed? That it's politically untenable not to list the token. I mean, it's unprecedented how quickly the entire industry has shifted since that Friday night. You know, it's crazy.
That Friday night, 10 days / 10 years ago. Yeah.
That Friday night.
That fabled Friday night.
That was the night of this January 17th, by the way, for the record.
Okay.
Because again, if you had asked me to pick how many days ago that was, I would have said like 2,700. But apparently it was like 9.
I honestly thought it was weeks ago. Well, we could probably talk about the Trump meme coin all day and the Melania coin, which upon release immediately crashed the Trump coin, but perhaps another episode we can talk about that.
If only we could have just unwind that clock a little bit.
Well, just a little bit. Just 5 minutes would have made a big difference. It's okay. Well, onward and upward. Also in Trump world, President Trump just the other day ordered the creation of the National Digital Asset Stockpile in an effort to cement U.S. leadership in the crypto industry. This is part of the executive order released on January 23rd titled Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology, which outlines a comprehensive strategy to promote the cryptocurrency and blockchain sectors in the United States. Included in the executive order were orders to promote lawful access to blockchain networks, mining, validation, and self-custody of digital assets, something that you and I are both huge proponents of, as we all should be. Encourages the global use.
Crypto. That's right.
Trusting your own crypto. Hey, why not? Encourages the global use of U.S. dollar-backed stablecoins to reinforce the sovereignty of the U.S. dollar.
Another topic we've been harping on since the start of the show.
It's true. It rescinds previous policies under President Biden, including Executive Order 14067 and the Treasury's Framework for International Engagement on Digital Assets. It prohibits federal.
There was
sorry, I keep interrupting.
Engagement, including the United States.
Right, exactly. It prohibits federal agencies from developing or promoting CBDCs, which is something that nobody wanted, and I don't think was really going to happen, but now it's definitely not going to happen, which
I don't know. You talk to some people and they're like, well, CBDCs sound pretty good. Why aren't we doing that? And I mean,
some of them sound pretty good in theory, but it never had a lot of traction here in the United States. I know some other countries have tinkered with it, but I remember, gosh, it has to be 3 years ago now, where the White House released a white paper on it, asking for commentary and questions. And that was kind of the last we really heard of it here in this country, at least that I know of.
I'm going to make a little sneaky bet here, which is that this issue, the denial of CBDCs in the U.S. is going to become a political football, and we're going to see anti-Trump people saying, "Well, maybe we should have this thing." Let's see. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for that one.
That's going to be the driving force. I mean, look, let's call a spade a spade. When Trump does something, there are people who love it and there are people who hate it. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how it impacts you. If he does it, you will hate it or you will love it. So if he says no CBDCs, now there's going to be a groundswell of support for people who say, well, maybe CBDCs are actually a good thing. So that's an interesting theory. I like that.
We'll see what happens with that
one. The order also directs exploration into creating a Federal Reserve digital assets, which I mentioned before, the long-awaited Bitcoin Strategic Asset Reserve. Excuse me. Part of this is potentially sourced from lawfully seized cryptocurrencies, which I believe is in the neighborhood right now of about 200,000 Bitcoin, totaling something like $20 billion with a B. It's a good starting point.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. government's the largest holder of Bitcoin. I don't know. Maybe MicroStrategy is coming up in the rear now, but yeah. I mean, I published an article and I was quoted on this issue and said basically all the government has to do is just decide to keep the crypto it has.
Right.
Which the problem here, and then I'm curious what you think, Kyle, is there's a lot of controversy about which assets should be included in a reserve and whether it should be only Bitcoin or also other things. Do you have a thought?
Well, it's certainly interesting because if you get into certain other assets that are clearly more volatile, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show, Bitcoin, with everything that's going on in the past 36 hours, which we'll get to, Bitcoin, yeah, it's dipped a little bit, but it's largely remained strong. It seems to be a bit more of a secure asset. When you start getting into the Solanas and the XRPs or other riskier assets of the world, that becomes a little bit more of a slippery slope.
Yeah, but Kyle, don't you want U.S. created coins to be in the reserve?
I mean, listen, I've been tooting the Solana horn for years, and finally, I am validated. My entire existence has been justified on this.
I don't think it's actually a U.S. company. I think they're based offshore. I think
I
there is a
believe that's
U.S.
correct.
like tech company, but I think
I
the token was
think that's
issued
right.
offshore.
I believe
But
that's
yeah,
correct.
I wish I had listened to you a little bit early on Solana. I'm like making up for it now, but it feels like a little bit too little, too late.
I got the shirt, I got the sign, I got it all. I made it.
All right. Next in our whirlwind of post inauguration crypto actions is the SEC having rescinded the crypto rule SAB 121, which now clears a path for banks to enter into the Bitcoin custody services industry. So, Kyle, as you may remember, the SEC had this directive that required banks to report cryptocurrencies held in custody as liabilities on their balance sheet, which then were subjected to capital reserve requirements, which effectively meant that if a bank were to hold crypto in custody, they would have to have like an oodles of cash on hand to like balance that out, which was just completely financially untenable. They just couldn't do it. So yoink, it's gone. Banks can now, in theory, now custody crypto. But as far as I've seen, there hasn't been like a rush of institutional banks saying, "Hey, come get your crypto custody services here." So, what do you think? Is this going to happen or make a real change in the uh, in what's happening on the ground?
I definitely think this is going to be an enormous change for a couple of reasons. First off, this SAB 121 uh, required banks to treat all crypto assets as liabilities, regardless of whether they were risky or not. And the problem with that is that the SEC played a role in creating the regulatory risk in the first place. So you have this doom loop of a problem where they're the ones making it risky, and then you have to classify it as a liability. I'm sorry, that is absolute bullshit. And one of my best friends worked at Silicon Valley Bank, and we were at Coachella last year. And in the middle of Coachella on Sunday, he gets an alert. He worked there, and he says, "Oh, I have an 8 a.m. Monday morning meeting at the bank." And we all knew it was going to happen. And the next day, the rug got pulled out from under them. This is definitely a step in the right direction. Now, basically, the way it's going to work is financial institution that holds, say, $10 million in crypto, it can say only 5% of that is risky and only treat 5% of it as a liability on their balance sheet. It just makes vastly more sense the way banks are structured and the way the SEC was just hammering these banks. It was ridiculous that they treated it this way.
Well, I agree that it's ridiculous, but something you just said is like, well, we only have to allocate like 5% risk to Bitcoin. And candidly, it's been quite resilient. And I know, when DeepSeek came out the other day and Nvidia went down like 17% and the Nasdaq cratered, Bitcoin kind of was pretty cozy. It went down to 99,000, but otherwise kind of rebalanced and still, six figures today. So I get that. But as you were saying that, it makes me think, well, is this a way that systematic risk gets reintroduced into the banking system by having banks custody assets, which are still, in my opinion, extremely volatile. And that's I mean that in like the most loving way. But when you have a financial institution, like there's like the Jenga towers built on top of this, and
Sure.
then something goes awry, does that not introduce like significant risk?
Well, I mean, in theory it does, but these banks are still subject to banking regulations. Those have not gone away. They're still subject to the same accounting standards that they were. They still have, FASB reporting and, and the peekaboo reporting and all those banking regulations and the alphabet soup of those agencies. So those aren't going away. So they can't just willy nilly declassify risk. But they have more wiggle room and they don't just have to classify 100% of it as a liability on the balance sheet. That is such an improvement over where we were.
You know what it sounds like to me, that we need a comprehensive regulatory framework to help people out here.
Hell, you say. All right. And Tornado Cash. These guys finally catching some breaks. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ruled that the U.S. Department of Treasury overstepped its authority, well, where have we heard that before, by sanctioning Tornado Cash, the cryptocurrency mixer. The court determined that Tornado Cash's immutable smart contract cannot be classified as property under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, as they are autonomous and not subject to ownership or control. Back in 2022, the Treasury's Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC, sanctioned Tornado Cash, alleging that it had facilitated the laundering of over $7 billion, including funds for North Korean hackers. This action marked the first time OFAC had sanctioned a decentralized protocol, which raised significant legal and ethical questions within the crypto community. Moish, how do you feel about Tornado Cash, and how do you feel about this decision?
Well, look, it's a hard one because at the end of the day, the allegations are, North Korean hackers are moving money through the protocol, and nobody likes that. And it's not a good look for the industry when, um, you know, bad actors get away with crime because of blockchain. So I think that's something that most Americans are behind. The question is, well, how should these things be regulated? Um, the Treasury thought they could just sanction the protocol. It's the first time that's been done. So look, I don't think I really understand the implications of this yet. Okay, so what is Treasury to do? If they cannot sanction a smart contract, then what do they do? How do they sanction? What do they sanction? How do they prohibit people from using decentralized protocols for laundering activities? So I think from like the privacy advocacy and the industry perspective, this is fantastic. But I'm now kind of the next question is, well, what is the regulatory framework that does make sense here? To balance national security with privacy and technological innovation and like all those things. So like that's where I'm trying to like put the pieces together.
I have to rewind the tape. I remember we talked about Tornado Cash when there were developments in the case over the past year and change.
Well,
And
remember,
from
there's two cases, right? There's the criminal case against the developers, and then this is a civil case filed by users saying that OFAC had exceeded. So this is a decision on the civil case.
yeah,
The criminal proceedings are still continuing.
okay, yeah. See, that's why you're the captain. You're more familiar with you're more familiar
Oh,
with it.
Captain, my Captain.
Oh, captain, my captain. Well, the Fifth Circuit agreed with you, stating that the AIPA only permits the regulation of property, which does not apply to Tornado Cash's self-executing smart contracts, and they emphasized that these contracts operate autonomously and cannot be owned as falling outside OFAC sanctioning authority. So this is largely a form over substance type decision. It's not about the thing they were sanctioning. It's the manner in which they did it, because they're saying you don't have the authority to do this. It's largely a jurisdictional pissing match, for
Well, I
lack of a
think this
better
gets
term.
into the Chevron doctrine kind of.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a bunch of times on the show, that this is just a new action that Treasury took, and they're like, well, you can't do that. You don't have the authority to do that. And I think it's funny that there's like an Emergency Powers Act that's been going back like I don't know how many decades now. It's like, oh, it's an emergency, but like there's always the emergency, and so it's like, oh, we have a new power we've never used because of the emergency that
Sure.
was from the 1970s or whatever that we kind of forgot about, but now we're I yeah,
You're such a lawyer.
thank you.
It's a compliment.
I didn't take it that way. DeepSeek. Oh boy.
Oh God.
DeepSeek. Man,
Where to
the
begin?
Chinese AI has put OpenAI out of a job. Isn't it incredible?
In one fell swoop.
One fell swoop, markets crashed, Nvidia tanked. DeepSeek, which was a side shoot of a hedge fund founded in 2023 as a AI assistant, which is now this MIT licensed AI model that competes with the best open AI models that are publicly available. And so they just did it. They released it, right? And it seems pretty good. I did ask it some questions. I was like, "Hey, DeepSeek, what do you think about the Tiananmen Square event?" And it was like, "I can't. I don't know what you're talking about."
It doesn't. What are you talking about? It didn't
I don't
happen.
know. I don't know. So there are some concerning aspects to it as well. But it was built using much cheaper NVIDIA chips. DeepSeek has said they only spent about $6 million developing it, which is I don't even think an order of magnitude. I think it's like 100x cheaper than OpenAI was spent developing their O1 model. And there's lots of privacy concerns, and there's all sorts of things going on. So Kyle, I mean, what happens from here? Like, this is reset the table completely. Are we just in this new global AI arms race now?
Well, it's really interesting to compare it. I mean, you mentioned OpenAI. It's interesting to compare these two and kind of how they started and what their foundational principles are. Before I go on, it's okay, everybody. Your bag is going to be okay. I know everything has looked terrible in the last 36 hours. Everything will be all right. But compare OpenAI to DeepSeek. DeepSeek's parent company is a hedge fund called Highflyer. Their origins are in finance. It's not in tech for tech's sake. It's not being developed for the betterment of humanity. OpenAI, we've talked about on the show about all the lawsuits that have been going on with OpenAI because, hey, you're not, you're trying to raise money. You're trying to be for profit. You're not here for the betterment of humanity. And it's in a way slowing down its progress. When that DeepSeek comes out, it just blows it out of the water. And it raises a lot of concerns. One, from OpenAI's sake, but two, just how quickly this can be developed. And if you have a for profit sort of motive, really how quickly that can come out. It's just interesting to compare the two to see the trajectory of OpenAI and now DeepSeek. I don't know. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how this unfolds in the coming days, let alone the coming years. Just the next couple of days, what's going to happen?
Well, I think it's really interesting to see what I mean. Does OpenAI, like, whether or not they're good intentioned, which I think we can argue about whether they are. And I know, including like Elon Musk and other people have made that argument pretty publicly. Um, they were the market leaders, at least until last week. And and there's all these other leaders like Meta and Anthropic and Microsoft, and yeah, you name it. Or Apple stock didn't really tank at all last week, so their AI wasn't good enough to be affected. But so all this aside, and also Perplexity, which I'm a fan of, is on my sweater. Um, so what happens here? And they were able to develop this, I think, just so cheaply, and really, it sounds like off the back of the other models. So it sounds like there's this distillation process where they train DeepSeek from the other models. So if OpenAI does all the work, someone can just kind of curve off their notes on what all the right answers are. So like I guess it means, like, if someone else can just start up and make a really cheap AI app and don't have to invest all this money in doing it, I think that changes the game. I think it's completely different. I think the technology is like, we just don't even know where to start. Like, it's just such a new category, and this is such a groundbreaking thing that just it's all new still.
See, a for-profit motive is all you really need to make things happen. It's
Yeah, the
crazy.
speculation I thought was funny was people are wondering whether the hedge fund's internal knowledge of this product, like once it was dropped, if they then like made some money in
Yeah,
the markets. And I was like, oh, that's smart.
that's some Skynet level duplicity right there. I like it. Well, my bag doesn't like it, but I
No,
like it.
no.
Well, Moish, we have arrived, the hallowed ground of the lightning round. And first up in the lightning round, a day one promise, which actually happened on day two. President Trump announced the full pardon of Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht, the dark web marketplace that facilitated illegal drug sales and other illicit activities using Bitcoin, among other things. It wasn't just that. Ulbricht sentenced in 2015 to two life terms plus 40 years for charges including drug trafficking, money laundering, and computer hacking. Became a cause célèbre for libertarians who argued his case exemplified government overreach. President Trump justified the pardon as correcting a harsh sentence and criticized the prosecutors involved, while the case remains controversial due to Ulbricht's alleged involvement in a murder-for-hire plot and the site's extensive criminal activities. Moish, I mentioned this on the last episode, and we actually disagreed on whether or not he should be released, and you specifically alluded to the murder-for-hire plot. So are you still on that hill?
No, I mean, look, this was a campaign promise that Trump had made, and we were in Nashville at the conference where he committed to doing that, and we had all the free Ross Day one people around us cheering him on. And look, I think the sentence was excessive in the fact that there's two life terms plus 40 years.
I always love when they
Um,
do that.
yeah,
Just
so
life in
so look,
prison. Like,
I have no problem with him being released. I think he's already trying to raise a venture fund, or for a new or venture capital for a new business. So we'll see how that goes, and wishing Ross all the best in his new life.
yeah. They said that I saw that there was a wallet that he potentially has something like 400 Bitcoin in it or something, but he has to get access to it, something along those lines. It's
Well,
not
the funny
bad.
thing is, like, as part of this, people were referencing Silk Road, like screenshots of like, if you want to buy X amount of whatever illegal drug, it's 600 Bitcoin, and that's now like like $60 million. And it's like, oh, like whoops.
10 years in jail for hundreds of millions of bucks.
All right, next lightning topic: the Ledger CEO David Beland, who co-founded the French cryptocurrency firm Ledger, known for their nifty hardware wallets, and his partner were kidnapped from their home in central France. This was done by an armed gang demanding 10 million euro in ransom in cryptocurrency. I remember this happening at the time, and there was some back and forth as to whether this was actually happening or it was just misinformation. But as it turns out, the French elite police unit, GIGN, successfully freed the couple after a 24-hour ordeal, including where Beland suffered a severed finger injury as part of the kidnappers' coercion tactics. So, Kyle, I think this underscores a really troubling rise in attacks targeting individuals that are well known in the cryptocurrency industry. And I think really highlights the need for increased security and discretion amongst crypto executives who aren't always known for being the most discreet people.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kyle, I mean, what else can we take away from just such a crazy incident like this?
Well, one, I think 10 million euro sounds a little low if you're going to try to pull off something like this. This doesn't sound like enough, quite frankly, for the trouble. But you're absolutely right. People have targets on their back. A lot of the people who are very successful, in crypto and heads of these, wildly successful companies, they're very public. They're very active on Twitter. They conferences and speak, and it's no secret what they own. A lot of them we can, they publicly talk about it. So I'm surprised that things like this don't happen more often, that there aren't legitimate threats levied at some of these more prominent figures. I'm very happy that, David and his partner made it out safely, less one finger, but I mean, just everybody be vigilant out there.
Yeah, no, like I think it's a great reminder of the importance of thinking about the assets you own and how you hold them, how you custody them, what your succession plan is, whether, there's a multi-signature collaborative custody arrangement that makes sense. So it's not just, you know, literally the head of Ledger walking around with a hardware wallet and that's the attack vector. I think people need to start, really considering being more sophisticated than that.
Hey, the metaverse, remember that? In 2021, following Facebook's rebrand to Meta and a $10 billion investment in virtual reality, the concept of the metaverse gained significant traction, with major tech companies and real estate ventures exploring virtual spaces. Our firm has a plot of land in the metaverse, still does.
It's still there.
However, I know it's still there. You
I
can
check on it
visit it,
sometimes.
everybody. However, here we are in 2025 and enthusiasm has waned as projects faced numerous setbacks. Apple's $3,500 headset saw limited sales, which I saw coming and nobody agreed with me. Disney and Microsoft reduced their metaverse initiatives and real estate firms began divesting from virtual properties. This decline underscores the challenges of monetizing and sustaining interest in virtual real estate. Moish, for my money, I think just things move too fast. I think the metaverse is a really cool idea. It's just there's too many other things happening that kind of drown out everybody's want to do that. That's just my take.
It's funny that you frame it that way because real estate is like a notoriously like very, very slow way to get rich. And so it's just like, oh no, it's too slow for this industry. Like you need to be moving
Right,
faster. Like for virtual like dirt doesn't work.
right.
Yeah, I mean I think it's interesting era now where Bitcoin is at very near an all time high. Solana's I think hit an all time high, but the metaverse is still kind of in the dust. So I hope it comes back. I think there's so much cool, as the way AI and crypto is now this new exciting kind of intersectionality. I think metaverse and virtual spaces and crypto is still this like exciting place, including using NFTs to secure digital real estate. But it's going to need to come back in a new flavor and rebranded for sure.
Yeah. Facebook stock though is still doing pretty well. So all things considered, so total loss.
All right, our last lightning topic: Pump.Fun was sued. A class action lawsuit was filed against Pump.Fun, a platform for launching and picking your favorite meme coins. The putative class action alleged that Pump.Fun operates as an unregistered security issuer and misleads investors about the risks involved. I don't know if it misleads investors. I mean, if you kind of jump on the site, it looks like a casino. I think they're pretty clear that like you're going to lose all your money here.
I agree.
The suit also claims that Pump.Fun structure encourages pump and dump schemes, where early investors artificially inflate token prices before selling off, leaving subsequent investors with significant losses. And the legal action follows similar litigation concerning the Hawk2 meme coin and highlights ongoing concerns about the regulation and transparency of meme coin platforms, as well as the underlying tokens that are issued on them. So, Kyle, what do you think? is there more disclaimer that should be required? What else can meme coin issuers do to protect the well-meaning investors that buy tokens on their platform?
I don't know if the Hawk Tuah coin is kind of the greatest illustration of what I'm about to say, but anybody who spent more than 30 seconds investing in meme coins knows that it's nothing more than a casino. You hit the nail on the head with that terminology. What is Pump.Fun supposed to do with this? Like they have the disclaimers on their website already, and everybody knows that these things, 99.9% of them go to zero within seconds. That's just the way it is. Log in right now. In the time I said that, thousands of meme coins went to zero. So I
People
just
just
don't
lost
agree with this.
millions. Yeah.
Yeah, this is sour grapes. I'm sorry. Like, take your class action lawsuit and take a walk. The only people who win in class action lawsuits are the lawyers. Go away. I don't agree with this suit at all. I'm not ashamed to say it.
Well, there you have it.
Well, that wraps it up for this edition of Block and Order, the first episode post inauguration. I'm sure we will have a lot more topics to cover in the next couple weeks because things are flying at light speed right now. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and follow us on all our socials. Links are down below in the show notes. If you have any questions or concerns or anything you want to talk about, please leave us a comment down below. We take comments and questions very seriously. Please note that Block and Order is meant for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing that we say is meant to be construed as legal or financial advice. Please hire your own attorney. Neither the discussion of nor the fact that Moish and I may own any of the assets that we discuss is meant to serve as an endorsement of such assets, except the AI shirt that he's wearing. He likes it. It's pretty great. Very special thank you to producer Sean. Without him, this show would not be possible. So on behalf of El Capitan, Moish Peltz, my name is Kyle Lawrence. I'll see you next time.